Now that we've learned how to set up our task and configure our task type and set up our pools and get everything ready so we can use tasks within business, now I want to spend today talking about how you can process tasks and the different useful things within business that can help you streamline your process. So the first thing that I want to show you is just how to use a task as it is and how to process a task as you're completing your work. So I went to task and then the task list, and I'm just going to click on one of them here. So you can see we have this task, okay? Now the first thing I want to point out is the description. So you are able to kind of format a description in here that would be most useful then. So let's say, for example, someone calls in and their computer isn't working, and you do IT work. So what you could do is this person can come in here and they can make a task. They can put in a description. Customer states that computer is not working. He will email a screenshot of the error message. Okay, so that's the initial description of the task. Now you can go in here and, like I said, you can format it so it makes more sense. Maybe you want a bullet point so you can just keep adding to this list as you're working the problem. So I'm going to go ahead and save. Now let's say the customer does kind of reach out and they do give you the error screen. I can go back in here and go to edit, and I can even paste in that image then. So it's visible right there. Something else you can do is you can add it as an attachment. So this attachment icon right here will allow you to add attachments instead of pasting them inside of the description box. Okay, so you can add attachments there. Now, say you're working on the problem and you need to notify someone else because maybe you need their help or something like that. You can, within the notes down here, actually tag another person. So I can say at Daniela, for example, and you can see her name will come up and I just choose the correct one then. I can tag multiple people as well. So I can also choose Brian, and then I can choose him from the drop down. I need help with this task. Any ideas? P.S. Can't ignore. It's just so they know this is a test. And then now all I need to do is hit enter. And then now Brian and Daniela will both get an email notifying them that I added a note that I had tagged them for it, and it'll have this message displayed as well. Something else you can do is you can tag people right within the description box, which can be pretty useful as well then. So if I want to do at Daniela, so now every time this task is updated, because I have her tagged within the description, she'll get a notification for everything then. So there's different ways you can do that. You can do it within the notes, and then you can also do it within the description. The description is making sure this person's getting notified constantly, whereas if you're tagging them in the notes, they're just getting notified for the note that you're entering. Okay? Something to keep in mind also, both in the description place and in the notes, I use the @ to tag someone. You can also use, I use the plus sign, but you can also use the @ symbol as well. Okay. So the @ or the plus does work in both places. So now that you're working on the task, you're gathering help from your employees, you're kind of marking how much you have completed, but perhaps now you need to put the task on hold, or you need to mark it as completed. Now the way that can be done is with the status right here. Now you can see it says it's open, but I can then change it to on hold, done, or canceled. Now, there is an ability in business to have custom statuses as well, but that does deal heavily in projects, so we will talk about that on our next lesson, which is going to focus more on projects. Now, as I mentioned before, we do have an attachments icon up here, but I do want to spend a bit of time going through the rest of these features just so you're comfortable and familiar with what they all do. So the first one is just a share button. So what this is doing, if you click on this, this is giving you the direct link to the task, and you can see the ID at the end. So you can quickly copy this to send to another employee or to someone else so they can quickly access the task. So like I said, just to share it. Refresh, so this is going to refresh the page. So this is useful, especially if you have more than one person working on a task. You can refresh it to see if any changes have been made. The attachments, like I said, you can add attachments to your task as well, so they'll be visible. Link to. If you had created this task from another area of the system, like an order or an opportunity or something like that, that link to will be there to show you what it was linked to. The audit log throughout business can be really useful. It's pretty much keeping track of all the changes that's being made to something, who's making those changes, the date and the time as well. So if you're ever confused as to how this task got assigned to you or how it got this type, or if there's anything confusing about a task, it's very useful to go and just kind of look through the audit log, because you can kind of retrace the steps. So I can go down here, I can see it was first assigned to me, the status went to open, we changed the task type to support tickets. So you can see it keeps a running trail of every change that's been taking place. So if you're ever confused or curious, you can go in here and retrace the steps to find out how a task got to you or anything like that. I do recommend looking at the audit logs throughout business just to familiarize yourself with them, because they can come in handy. If there's ever a change that's made that you're not familiar with, you can kind of check in the audit log to see who made the change. That way proper training can be applied then. Okay, so we do also have a checklist. Now, a checklist is interesting because you can create a checklist right from within the task. You can also make a checklist within the task type. Now, I don't believe I showed you that on our last lesson, so let me just show you quickly where you can add a checklist to your task types. So I went to Company and Settings, and then I'm going to Task, Task Setup, Task Types, and then I'm going to go into a task type, Billing Inquiry, for example, and you can see there's a checklist items here. So I can add items to this checklist in order to have a checklist saved within my task. Now, like I said, I can go ahead and just add them right from the task itself. So step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. Step 3, do some more. Okay. Now, since I entered these checklist items, I can delete them. Now, if someone else had entered these, I would not be able to delete them. So if you enter it, you can delete it, but otherwise they will stay there. Now, you're not going to be able to mark a task as done until you do complete that checklist. So just to kind of demonstrate how that would look, so I have all this information in here. I can go to Done, and it's going to let me know all checklist items must be completed. So I will need to go in here and check everything off. I can enter in a note, and then I can say save. Okay. There is even a printable view of your checklist if your employees want to print it out so they can kind of check things off that way. You do have that ability as well. Now that I have the checklist complete, and you can see it says 3 out of 3, now I can go and mark my task as done. And you can see the audit log went up as well. Now I'm going to mark it as open again since we're working off of this task. And you can see the audit log went to 13 now because it is keeping track of every time I'm opening it and every time I'm closing it. Now, the next thing I'd like to talk about is communication within tasks. There's a few different things you can do when it comes to communication. Now, of course, over the request to buy, you do have a send email button, so that's going to open up an email, and you can see it's populating in the information from the task description and some other information, which can be useful then. So the customer as well is getting clarity on what's being done. You can also CC and BCC other people as well. So if I want to add in another email just to keep people informed, I can do that as well. Now, to edit this content, which can be done, you would need to go into your settings. So I'm going to go to Company and Settings. Okay, and then I'm going to go to company and email and portal content. So all your system generated notifications coming from business are housed within here. So this one, for example, the subject is information regarding task number 17. So I could search for that in here, information. Nope, actually it needs to go over here. So I'm looking in the content to see where this may be. Nope, it's not. That's fine though. Get rid of the S. Sorry, I'm struggling a bit. Okay, so you can see all these emails that come from task. These are all the system generated notification. Now I think this info email is the one that I was just sending. So you could see, yep, it's got task ID and it's merging in that ID. It's merging in the description, which even added the image as you saw. And then it's merging in all this other information. Now this can be edited and you can add additional merge fields or remove merge fields as desired. Now this is the location where all of your notifications are being housed. So you can see there are quite a lot of them. If I just scroll down, there's 248 of them. So it's a good idea every now and then, if you do see a system notification that's going out and you want to edit it in some way to show additional information or less information, you can go into your email and portal content and you can edit as needed. Okay. So that's one way you can email your customer or your contact as long as they're there in the request to buy. Another option is you have messaging. Now the good thing about messaging is you are able to select more than one person. Now you can see it put in the contact for me and you can see it's indicating it's a contact with this C in front of it. But I can search for other people and add them as well. And that can be internal people as well as external contacts for the customer for Pelican Freight. Now the difference is with the messaging is I can add multiple people. This isn't a formatted message either. It's just an open message that I can create whatever content I want and then send. Now that other email kind of has more merge fields and it's kind of displaying additional information, if you notice, whereas the message one, it's not pulling this in for you. It's just a one-off message you can send. Now the good thing is with messaging in business, if I start a message within business to my contact and then they reply within their personal email, it will still be logged in business. And the same can be said then if after she replies, I reply back in my email, it'll still be logged within business. As long as that initial message was started within here, all the replies that are being done within your personal emails, it will be logged within here as well. And you can see you can also add in attachments to the message itself too. We do have you can change what type of communication it is, so you can keep track if it's a status update or general communications, that kind of thing. The subject by default is already set. You can change it if you want by clicking change subject. You can see this is the default message that's in, or the default subject that's in there. You can edit this if you need to before you send. So there's one other way for communications within task, but that has to do more with the assignees. So if I want to email the assignees, I can click on this the breadcrumb icon right here and I can go to email assignees. Now that's going to email everyone who is currently assigned to this task. And you can see it's pulling in a lot of information similar to how it did for the contact. And then also as well I can CC and BCC. I can change the subject. I can edit anything in here. But yeah, so it's another way of just starting a general communication then. So now that you're working on your task and you need to submit time. So for timesheets to show that you have been putting time towards your task, you can actually do that right from within the task. You're not going to have to leave the page, go to timesheets and things like that. We have added a quick add for adding time to your task. Now if I click this, it's going to pre-enter some information for me into the new time entry page. So you can see it put in the date for me, it put in the customer, it put in the location from the task, it put in the order, the task itself. So you can see a lot of information is being pre-filled in, which is really useful because it does save time then. And then pretty much all you would need to do is you would select your item, enter in your hours, whatever notes you may want to enter, mark if it's billable or not, and then you would save and close or save and add new. So you can see entering time, it's very quick and easy from within the task. Some other information that's available up here is showing recent orders and tasks. So this is just a quick view, which this customer doesn't have any, but it would show any recent orders and tasks that are currently being worked on. The view log is showing you who has viewed this task or who has most viewed this task. Okay. And then there's a couple other options over here. Duplicate tasks. So if there's a lot of information within your task that it'll just be easier to make a copy or to duplicate this task, then you can do so from here. And then you can change any information. So even if it's not, for example, the same customer, I can still duplicate the task, change the customer to the correct one, because a lot of the other information is very similar and it's going to be easier and quicker for me just to duplicate this. Setting a task as recurring is another option you have. So that's, we'll have this task recur on whatever basis you set up within here. So this is useful for reminders that you have on a regular basis, or something you need to do on a regular basis, something you need to check on or something you need to update, things like that. It's a good idea. You can add it in as a task right from here. So you can see you can choose daily, weekly, monthly. You're saying when the next date is or when the start date is, and then you're going to say when it's going to recur. On which day of every month or on the first Sunday of every month. You can see there's really, it's very versatile on what you could do. Like if you choose the weekly, for example, you can say every other week maybe instead of every week, and then only on Fridays and Mondays. So you can get very granular with this. You can say when it's supposed to end as well. Now you can say there's no end date, so it's just going to keep recurring this task. You can also choose an exact date from here, or you can choose how many occurrences. So I say I need 10 tasks and then that's it. So 10 tasks every other week. Then once it reaches the 10 tasks, it'll stop the recurrence then. So it can be very useful when setting this up, especially for regular reminders and things like that. Now, the one other thing I did want to discuss was using a subcontractor on your PO. So maybe you need to hire a subcontractor to work on this. So I'm going to go ahead and say use subcontractor. And then you see you can choose your purchase order. You can look up a purchase order, or you can quickly create a purchase order. Now, when I quickly create a purchase order, it's going to open in a new page, so I'm not losing my information. And then you could see the information that was within the task itself also gets added into the vendor notes for the purchase order. Then you could see some items pre-populate and things like that then. Just choose a vendor, and we haven't added one yet, so let's just go ahead and use the quick add to create a vendor. So let's say just some random name. Let's see, and it's going to Google search it for me, which is neat, and we'll go with this customer or this vendor. Okay, so then now I can create PO, and this PO is number 3, and then it's going to be sent for acceptance then to the vendor. Okay, so something else it's very important to have in mind when you're first setting up your system is something like customer notifications, especially when it comes to tasks. So when do you want your customer to be notified? Which contact with your customer should be notified, and that type of information. Now that can be stored within the customer's information. So if I go to customers, and then I'm going to hit customers again, and then it takes me to my list of customers. So I'm just going to go into a random one. Let's do the Pelican Freight, for example. Now this is showing me all the open information about the customer. You can see their open task right here. I can quickly add a task for them if I'd like to. And then you can notice from here I can also message about this task, and I can also mark the task as done right from this page, right from the customer's dashboard. But what I want to worry about is my notifications. But first, let's make sure we have contacts, because we need contacts with emails, of course, to be notified. Now we just have the one, so let's go ahead and add another contact. And let's just say Joe Smith, for example. He's the CEO. Okay. And then Joe Smith at okay. And now once I have his email in there, I can fill in his address, his location, and other information that's required as well. But then once I'm ready, I can go ahead and save and close. So now that I have my contacts in the system, now I want to set up who should be notified in regards to tasks. So I'm going to go over to the settings tab right here at the very end. Now you would go to your settings tab while viewing a customer. So that's very important to remember. It's not the settings here. It is the settings from under a customer. Now within the settings page, there's a lot of useful information or a lot of useful things you can set up. There's a lot that has to do with accounting, so like invoices, credit memos, payments, collection notices, like who should be notified for those you can set up over here. On the right side of the screen, however, it's dealing more with tasks. So you're setting up who should be notified with task. So for example, the task created. So who should be notified when a task is created? Now if I hit add new recipient, I can choose the task type. So I can say, for example, Alice should be notified if it's a billing inquiry because she handles that job. But let's see, it should be customer request for information. That should really be Daniela who gets notified because she handles information like that. So you can set it up per task type. You can also do it as all. Now if you choose all, it's just going to add every type with this condition. Another thing that's really useful is I can set the primary contact as well as the requested by. So if I choose the requested by for all task types, now what this is saying is every time a new task is created, whoever I have added as the requested by on the task, just to remind you, if I go to a task again, so you can see the requested by right here, for example, is Valerie Johnson. But I can make it so whoever it is in the requested by will be notified when the task is created. Then I can also do another layer on top of that. The requested by will be notified for all task types, but if it's a billing inquiry, Alice will also receive a notification. If it's a customer request, then Daniela will also receive a notification along with the requested by. So you can see there's a lot of detailed setup you can do here to really determine who should be notified and when. And then to edit, of course, you would just hit the edit icon, hit the check mark so it takes effect. You can also deactivate right here. So you have that for task created, for task in progress, and like I mentioned before, a task is considered in progress the moment a person who is assigned to the task looks at the task. So they opened the task and they looked at it. So it's not a physical status that you can set. It's being set by the system because the person who is assigned to the task has finally looked at the task. But you can have your requested by, for example, get notified once the task is marked in project or in progress, because then they would know, okay, it's being worked on. You can also do it for when task is done. Task, when it's done, having a notification go to the requested by can be very useful because it's informing them that the task has been completed. So it kind of alleviates that need to have to call the customer to update them to let them know it's been resolved. Instead, you can just mark the task as done and a notification will automatically be sent to the customer. Or to whoever the requested by was. Now you can also do that with the primary contact as well. So if you want the primary contact to be notified once a task is done, you have that option too. Task approvers is something else. It's a neat concept that you would send a link to your contact and they would need to approve this task before you can begin working on it. So this is like it's having an approval process, but when it comes to your task instead of financial type entities. So if I go ahead and let's see, add Valerie Johnson, for example, for all task types. Okay. Now, just to demonstrate how a task approving would work, if you create a task that has approval set up, so you can see as soon as I chose Pelican, this came up. So if I delete that and I choose that customer that I know needs to have their task approved first, you can see this does come up. Now, I approved it because I have permission, but otherwise the customer will be notified. And then you can even see it inputs important information such as the IP address, who approved it, the date, and the time. So having that visual auditing as well for this is very important, so you know important details then. Another option that's really useful is your default assignments per customer. So if you remember, we can have a default assignment in the task type, but you can also have a default assignment per customer. Now this will override whatever you have set up in the task type. This is very useful if your customer has teams assigned to them or pools assigned to them. You want to make sure that the correct people are being notified. Or if there's someone who owns the client, like a client manager or a client coordinator or something like that, and they should always be notified first, or they should always be assigned, and then they reassign as they see fit. It can be very useful. But you would simply add new assignment, choose the assigned person, and then choose the task type, and then say, okay. Oops, and it seems like I didn't hit my name there. But you can see then, so that way the default assignment will be set to whoever you have set there. And like I said, that's per customer, so that will override what you have in the settings. So this allows you to get very granular and very detailed on who's going to be notified, who's going to approve your task, and who's going to be the default assignments then as well. So the next thing I do want to talk about is utilizing the dispatch screen. The dispatch screen is really useful for when you have a lot of tasks that are assigned to pools and you need to make sure they're getting reassigned to the correct people. For this, I'm going to switch over to another system just because we have more data in here, so I'll be able to demonstrate a bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Task and then Dispatch. So right now it's showing me that I don't have any task matching my search criteria, but that's okay because what I can do is I can hit this search task icon and you can see right now I have it filtered to a marketing pool instead of everybody. So we just check those off. So I have my teams here and my pools. And after I show you how the dispatch screen works, I'm going to take you into creating a team and we'll briefly go over creating a pool again, but we did go over that on our last lesson. So I'm going to go ahead and hit search. So you can see it's showing me all the tasks that are currently in the pools. You can see it's also showing me based on employee as well. So default pool. Right now there's 15 tasks sitting in the default pool. So they're currently not assigned to an individual. They're still just sitting in a pool. So I want to make sure these are getting worked on. So like I said, hitting this magnifying glass here will allow me to determine what tasks do I want to show up. And then I can choose my teams, I can choose my pools, and then they'll show up in that way then. I can quickly add a task as well from here, or I can refresh. That way if there's more than one person utilizing the dispatch screen and they're utilizing the same filters, you can research every now and then just to make sure both of your guys' page are the same. There is another search icon over here. Now this is allowing you to search for what employees you want to show up here. And that's being done by team. So right now I only have the marketing team showing up, but I can have more as well. So you see, once I have my employees over here, there's some useful information as well that's shown. First of all, it's showing me the employee name. It's showing me their job title and the teams they're a part of. Now, if I click on the person's name, it's going to show me more information about them as well. So I can then get their employee info, their email book, their phone book, bio, or any skill sets. So this is very useful if I need to contact the person quickly. Now you can see the workload and appointments are being calculated on here. So for example, mine right here, I have a workload of 28. So that means all my tasks, the budgets on the task have been set to equal up to 28. For appointments, it's saying 0 just because I don't have any appointments set. To give you a better idea of this though, let me actually show you in another system, in our live system that we actually use every day for work. So I'm going to go to the dispatch. And then you can see, so my workload, currently I have 60 hours, or 60 of my budget. My appointments that I have set is 5 appointments that equal up to 9 hours. So you can see it's doing some calculations for me there, okay? Now to get a quick access view of all of these tasks and appointments, I can click on this workload details, and this is going to preload information in here for me, such as the task, and then I can quickly visit the task from here as well by clicking on the name. And then you can see it also shows the budget hours, also my division, my position. It's showing some useful information in here. So that's how you would use the dispatch screen. It's very easy. All you're going to do is right here. So all you're going to do is you're going to take a task that's currently assigned to a pool, and then you're going to know from the details that's here to quickly click and drag to reassign. So I click, I drag, and I reassign just by dropping it on a person's name. Now the list over here as well, if you hover over it, does have some useful information. So if I hover over, you can see I can see the start date, the created date, the budget, the customer. I can see all that right from here. If I want to view it, I can also view the task by clicking on this, and that's going to take me to preload that task. Now you will need to create teams as well as pools if you would like to use the dispatch. We did talk about pools on our last lesson, but I'm going to briefly go over that again and then show you how to create the teams as well. So to create a pool, you would go to Company, Settings, Task, Task Setup. No, I'm sorry, not Task Setup, Pool Setup, and then Pools. So you can see I have one created already. So you would enter in the name. If you want this pool to be the default for any unassigned tasks, you could check that off here. You can add in a brief description, your pool manager, and then your notification recipients. Now notification recipients, they're going to only be notified, and then they can sign in and reassign tasks to themselves. And you see you can also put just an email, just a standard email, so they get notified as well as a job title. So you can make it so everyone with this job title, support, will be a part of this pool. You also do have pool managers. Now pool managers, they are able to assign tasks from the pool to anyone, as well as assign tasks to the pool as well. So this gives them a bit more flexibility when it comes to the pool. So that's how you create a pool. I do want to show you how to create a team though as well, because like I said on the dispatch screen, you are utilizing your teams along with your pools. So this page really does utilize both. So in order to add a team, you would go to Employees and then Teams. And then you're just going to choose Add. So you can name it here. So let's say it's the red team, for example. You can have a team type, and at the type level you can then define a structure if you want or anything like that. If this team is going to be utilizing tasks, you can make it available for task assignments. And then what you're going to do is add in your team members. And you can see it's putting it with their job title as well. So it's kind of formatting it for you so you have a general idea of how many people is in each of these job titles within this team. Now you do have managers as well, so you would put the pool managers so they have access to edit the team or view the team when needed. And you can select more than one person. And then access to. So this is going to allow them access to view information about the team within here then. And then I'm just going to save. Now once you save, then you can choose a team leader. So you're saying who's the leader of this team. So I'm going to say Daniela, save and close. So it's really important, if you do want to use the dispatch screen, it's important to set up your pools and set up your teams beforehand. And then of course your task types as well. But task types of course is kind of going into everything we're covering. So that's a good idea as well. Now one other thing I do want to show you is how useful it can be to have your customers be able to submit tasks to you from the customer portal. So I'm going to go ahead and just go into this customer here. And I notice that I have them at a lost status, so I'm just going to change that real quick and put them back to active just so I make sure they're active and I can go in the portal and everything. Now, normally, whoever is signing into the portal, they would sign in from the login page and everything like that. The great thing about business is we have made it easier to sign in as your customer so you can see what they see. So what I'm going to do is sign in a back way into the partner portal so I can demonstrate to you how they can submit a task and submit information to you. So I went to the contact under the customer, and then I'm just going to go to a contact within here. As long as they have an email, then you are able to do this. And then I'm going to go over to portal settings. Now this one is just set as a basic user. I'm going to give it full access and save. And then after I show you how to submit tasks within the portal, I am going to go over these portal roles as well to make sure that your customers do have the correct permissions. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is just view the business partner portal, and it's going to log me in as this contact. So this is going to be my view as the contact signed in. And it can get a little confusing because I used my name as the contact as well as the employee, but bear with me. So from here, you can see they have a submit request button. So they can click on that to actually create a task. Before I do that though, I do want to show you from their customer info, you can view their task. Now tasks are only going to show up on the partner portal if you have marked them visible within the task type. So if they are not visible, they're not going to show up here. But then you can see from this list, it has some useful information. Any attachments, the message logs, if you want to create a message or read a message. It's showing you if it's related to a project, what the status is, any notes, and you can click on this to kind of show more notes then as well. The request to buy, if it's related to an order, like you can see here, the task date, and the task itself. And then you can click into this to read more information. So this is what's visible to the customer then. And then you can also see they can create a message from within here too. Now when they go to submit a request, they would hit submit request. And then they can choose their type. If there's only one type that's visible, of course, that'll be the only one to be chosen from. But I have all of these visible on the partner portal, so they are able to choose. So let's say I choose billing inquiry. I'm going to choose a subject. So I think I may have been overcharged. Priority. So your customer can set the priority that they feel the task is. So I'm just going to say normal. And then any notes. I think I was overcharged. Can you please take a look at this? And then they can actually even upload attachments as well. So they can make a copy of their bill and upload it here as well. Now I don't think I really have anything in here that I can upload. No, I don't, but that's fine. But you are able to upload, and you can see these are all the attachment types that you can upload as well as the max file size. Okay, and then they're going to hit submit. Now once they have submitted it, If I go into my system now and I go to task and the task list, and then I'm going to do a quick search for that type, and that type was billing inquiry. I'm going to make sure to get rid of my name because it's probably not assigned to me by default. I'm going to hit search. And then you could see, I think this is an older one, so the other one might still, it may still be being created. But it will show up then, and then I could process the task in that way. There are a few reports that are very useful when it comes to using task within the system. So there's two that I want to cover today, the service metrics report and then the team efficiency report. The service metrics report, if you click on reports and you go to service over here, and then you're going to click metrics, and then you can see you can choose the month and the year start and the month and year end. You can filter by division. If you click this blue down arrow, you'll also see there's some more filters you can use. So if you want to filter by order, by the customer, by the item, there's a lot of different ways you can go about this. So I'm just going to hit search, so it'll shows everything that's in here then, which there's not much. So let me switch over to my other system again as well. So I'm going to go to report, service metrics, and then I'm going to hit search. So you can see this report is showing a lot of very useful information. So for example, the customer, showing the customer here, all the orders related to the customer, the order names, and then it's going to show any tasks that are related as well. Now the task is getting that relation from the order too. So you can see it's showing you the task response time, the task closure, how much has been invoiced, and again that is being driven off of the order. The dollar per task, task response hours. So you can see then it's breaking it up by the month. And so here's March, February, January. Another report that can be very useful when you're using task in business is the team efficiency report. So I would go to reports, and then under service again, I would hit the team efficiency. And then you can see you're going to filter by completion date range, team, task type, and if you hit the down arrow, there are other options as well. I'm just going to go ahead and hit search with the default search it has there, and you can see it's putting it to last month. And then now what this report is showing me is the average response time and then the average timed resolution. And then it's kind of putting it out based on the number of tasks. It's showing the total started on time, not started on time. So it's giving me some metrics to go along with it then. So how the response time is calculated is, of course, when the task is being responded to. So that has a lot to do with the in progress as well. Like I mentioned before, as soon as the task, whoever is assigned to the task, as soon as they view it, it's considered in progress and it's being responded to. Now the timed resolution, of course, is taking the time that it was responded to the time that you marked it done. So it's putting out some average timed resolution as well as some average response time. So it's doing some math for you to kind of give you an idea on where you can improve or where you're doing well. Okay. Now, if there is any data that you're trying to find that's not within these two reports, it is important to keep in mind that we do have a report builder. So in the report builder, you can kind of build any type of report you would need as well. And we do have a task data set. So I'm not going to build a whole report, but just to give you an idea on some things you can do. You have the available columns over here, so you can see there's a lot of information when it comes to the task. And not just the task, but the project, the order, the milestone, because a lot of these things are being tied together through the task. And then you can also filter. So you can filter out all tasks that are done, so you don't want to see done, or you can filter out certain customers, you can filter out certain assignments. So you can use these filters to show certain things as well as hide certain things as well. So I think that pretty much covers it for today. We talked a lot about how to process your task and how to manage your task. Next week, we are going to be talking about setting up your project. So now that you have a very good understanding of how tasks work and how you can manage your task and process your task, it's gonna be really useful to feed into next week's lesson then, because next week we will be setting up a project. So I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you had fun with the Business Academy, and I will see you next week. All right, have a great day. Bye.